What's up, football fans? Now, if you watched that divisional round game between the Houston Texans and Kansas City Chiefs, you probably felt like something was off. I mean, the Texans didn't just have to play against the Chiefs. They had to face everybody. Everybody, according to DeMeco Ryans, their head coach. And no, he didn't mean the Chiefs' offense, defense, or the fans. He was talking about the referees. And I'm sure you'll agree with me. Sometimes it does feel like the Chiefs just get all the love from the refs. So, today we're diving into that controversial post-game moment, why Ryan's comments may have been spot on, and how this ref bias might be playing out in the NFL. Stick around, because trust me, you won't want to miss this. Alright, let's set the scene. Saturday, divisional round, Chiefs vs Texans, a classic showdown. Or, well, it could have been, if it weren't for questionable officiating that really had people scratching their heads. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, here we go. Another ref bashing session. But hear me out. I mean, come on. When you watch a game and your team is flagged for a roughing the passer penalty that makes you say, was that even a roughing penalty? Or did the guy just sneeze too loudly? You have to wonder if the game's getting a little tilted. That's right. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback of the Chiefs, somehow drew one of the worst roughing penalties of the season. And yes, the penalty was more ridiculous than that time I tried to run a 5K after a Thanksgiving dinner. But I digress. Now, here comes the juicy part. After the game, Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans, a man who's usually as calm as a cucumber, went full throttle with his thoughts. He didn't mince words when he said, and I quote, "We were playing against everybody." Oof. Yeah, now, Ryans didn't just point the finger at the Chiefs for being tough competition. No, he was putting the spotlight on the refs. And honestly, can we blame him? Ryans said his team needed to play better. But he wasn't shy about calling out how the referees' calls didn't help. He said it was like they were playing with an extra opponent on the field. And, let's face it, sometimes it does feel like the Chiefs get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to those 50-50 calls. But is it just the refs being overly kind? Or is there something bigger going on here? Now, let's take a step back and really think about this for a second. The Chiefs, especially with a star like Mahomes, have become one of the NFL's most marketable teams. And when you're the NFL's golden child, you tend to get a little more attention. Don't get me wrong, Mahomes is an incredible player. But let's not pretend we haven't seen some calls swing in his favor. And, honestly, can we really argue that the NFL doesn't benefit from the Chiefs being in the spotlight? Think about it. The Chiefs are in nearly every big primetime game. The playoffs are always a spectacle when they're around. And Mahomes is just that guy. It's not a stretch to think that sometimes referees might subconsciously lean towards the team that moves the needle for the league. Is it right? Well, that's up for debate. But is it happening? I mean, just ask Ryans. But, hold up. Let's not act like this is the first time the Chiefs have benefited from questionable calls. Oh no, there's been a history. Who can forget the infamous D4 offside in the 2018 AFC Championship? When the Patriots somehow got another shot at the Super Bowl, let me tell you, it didn't sit well with a lot of fans. And hey, I'm not saying the refs were out to get the Texans, but maybe they were just a little too generous to Mahomes and company. Insert footage of controversial calls in previous games involving the Chiefs. I mean, when you watch enough of these games, you start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the refs are just trying to make the NFL more exciting by, making sure the most marketable teams are always in the mix. It's all about the money, baby. But let's take a moment and talk about the big picture here. Ryans, as frustrated as he might have been in that press conference, isn't just throwing a tantrum. He's calling attention to something that a lot of fans have been noticing for a while now. Some teams get a little extra love from the officials. Now, I'm not suggesting it's some grand conspiracy, but I am saying that sometimes it feels like there's more at play than just fair and equal officiating. And that brings us to the future of NFL officiating. If this keeps happening, expect more coaches like Ryans to speak out about it. We saw it with Mike Tomlin. We've seen it with John Harbaugh. And now we're seeing it with DeMeco Ryans. Coaches are getting fed up. And honestly, so are fans. So, after all of this, do you think DeMeco Ryans has a valid point? Is it time for the NFL to look at its officiating more closely? especially when the big-name teams seem to get special treatment. Or are we all just imagining things and maybe Ryans and the Texans just had a bad game? Either way, it's definitely food for thought. If you've got an opinion on this, drop a comment below. I want to hear what you think. Do the Chiefs get more favorable calls? Or is this just a case of the Texans needing to play better? Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the breakdown. And hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next time we talk about all the latest NFL drama. Catch you in the next one. Peace out. Outro music plays as the video fades out. Troy Aikman incensed by Patrick Mahomes' roughing call. DeMeco Ryans says Texans were facing everybody. It's no secret that NFL fans love to complain about the Kansas City Chiefs getting all the calls from officials, especially when the Chiefs keep winning games in ways that leave some scratching their heads. But on Saturday's AFC divisional round game, even those on the broadcast team couldn't hold back their frustration. Troy Aikman, the former NFL quarterback and current ESPN analyst, was absolutely incensed by the roughing the passer call that went against the Houston Texans and benefited the Chiefs. The penalty, which cost the Texans 15 yards, came in the middle of a tense game that saw Kansas City on the way to a 23-14 win, clinching their spot in the AFC Championship game for the 7th consecutive season. The call that set Aikman off, roughing the passer on a barely hit Mahomes. So what exactly went down? Let's set the scene. Patrick Mahomes, who is known for extending plays with his legs, took off running and then slid right before being hit by two Texans defenders. There was barely any contact, and it was clearly a non-late hit. Yet the officials still threw the flag on the Texans for roughing the passer. Aikman was furious, as he clearly voiced his opinion on the broadcast, saying, "Oh, come on." He couldn't have disagreed more with the call, arguing that Mahomes was a runner at the time and the hit barely made contact with him. The play was soft at best, and Aikman wasn't having it. He's a runner. I could not disagree with that one more, and he barely gets hit. Aikman fumed. That's the second penalty now that's been called against the Texans. And he wasn't the only one upset. ESPN rules analyst Russell Yerk joined in, agreeing with Aikman and adding, "Troy, I agree with you. There's no forcible contact to the head and neck area of him. The two Houston players hit each other and that should not have been a foul. But the damage had already been done." After that controversial penalty, the Chiefs marched down the field, with Mahomes connecting with Travis Kelce for an 11-yard touchdown that extended their lead to 20-12. The Texas side of things, it's versus everybody. But the complaints didn't stop with the broadcasters. After the game, Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans was asked about the calls that went against his team. His response was pointed and hinted at a broader frustration. "We knew going into this game. Man, it was us versus everybody," Ryans said in his post-game media conference. "When I say everybody, it's everybody. All the whatever. Everybody. The naysayers. The doubt. Right? Everybody. We had to go against today. With that, knowing going into this game, knowing what we were up against, we can't make the mistakes we made." Clearly, Ryans felt like his team was up against much more than just the Chiefs' high-powered offense. He was implying that the officials were part of that everybody, making it seem as though the Texans were fighting a two-front war. One against a dynastic Chiefs team and another against what they saw as biased officiating. As for Will Anderson Jr., the Texans' defensive end, he didn't mince words when he summed up his experience of the game. "We knew it was going to be us against the refs going into this game," Anderson said bluntly after the loss. "The Chiefs' dynasty and the refs' influence. Now, don't get it twisted, the Kansas City Chiefs are a great team. And their dynasty over the last few seasons speaks for itself. They're led by one of the most talented quarterbacks in NFL history. And Andy Reid has proven himself to be an elite coach. But, even the Chiefs' most loyal fans have to admit that the constant discussion around officiating tends to overshadow the team's actual accomplishments at times." Saturday's game against the Texans wasn't just about Mahomes' heroics or the Chiefs' defensive dominance, which, by the way, included 8 sacks on Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud. The talk after the game was dominated by the penalties, the ones that seemed to continuously go in the Chiefs' favor. From the roughing the passer calls to the questionable unnecessary roughness penalties. The Texans were left feeling like they were in a constant battle not only against Kansas City's powerful offense but also against the referees. And while Kansas City came out on top once again, this game left a sour taste in the mouths of Texans fans and other NFL fans who are sick of the Chiefs' seemingly endless penalty advantages. What does the NFL think about this? The NFL likely doesn't want to see this kind of discussion become the focal point of a game that was otherwise filled with exciting plays. While penalties are part of the game, it's clear that a growing sentiment has emerged that the Chiefs get the benefit of some very questionable calls. And when those calls go against teams as gritty as the Texans, it adds fuel to the fire. The league will probably continue to stand by its officials. But the question remains, is the NFL okay with the Chiefs' games being defined by the controversy surrounding their penalty calls? Fans of other teams, especially those who are not Chiefs supporters, certainly have their doubts. As for the Chiefs, they're marching on to their 7th straight AFC championship, but not without some heavy criticism for the role officiating played in their win. Whether or not this becomes a recurring talking point in future playoff games remains to be seen. But it's clear that the Chiefs are going to have to deal with more than just tough opponents if they want to continue their march to another Super Bowl. Everyone's turning on Patrick Mahomes following egregious penalty. Is it finally too much? Alright, folks, it's happened. When even the commentators start calling out Patrick Mahomes, you know it's officially reached a boiling point. The Kansas City Chiefs quarterback has been at the center of a whirlwind of controversy during the AFC divisional-round game against the Houston Texans on Saturday. It seems like every time Mahomes even looks like he's been touched, a flag flies. And, trust me, it wasn't just the Chiefs fans who were grumbling about this. The whole internet had something to say about the penalties. The first incident, a little tickle. A lot of flags. The first questionable moment came in the first quarter when Will Anderson, the Texans defender, was hit with a roughing the passer penalty. Why? Because, apparently, Mahomes got a little tap from Anderson after releasing the ball. It wasn't exactly a violent collision, more like a friendly, "Hey, I see you," tap. But, hey, when Mahomes is in the game, even a light touch is apparently enough to send him flying, straight into a field goal attempt from Harrison Butker. So, in short, a barely noticeable tap led to a free 15 yards and some extra points. You know, the usual for Mahomes, but hey, we move. The second incident, Mahomes slide into drama. But the real drama went down in the third quarter. Mahomes, trying to take off on a run, decided to do what Mahomes does best, create magic. But as he tried to slide to avoid a hit, Henry To'oTo'o of the Texans made a tackle that